what do you do?
My name is Cathy Guthrie, and I'm the Executive Vice President of Human Resources for a company out of Nashville called Ncontracts.
And Cathy, tell me the story of how you got into HR.
My story is a little different than most. I was actually an executive assistant and office manager for almost 15 years and entered the world of .com. And so I had started picking up a lot of HR responsibilities like recruiting, benefit management, performance management. And so one day someone asked me, what do you want to do next? And I didn't have a great answer. And someone suggested, well, what do you love most about what you do? And I knew it was HR related. So I went to work for a startup where the skills I had were skills they needed. And it was an opportunity to exponentially grow my everything really at that point. So.
Hey, that's awesome to hear. I feel like that's how it happens is you have to take some time to eventually self-identify with, the career that you want to go down. Now, once you took your first step into HR, tell me how you were able to have continued growth there. What are the steps that you took to ensure that?
Yeah, it was critical because I was in a very fast growing company that was relying on me. So I went and got certified almost right away because what I knew is there was a lot I didn't know. And so I felt quite vulnerable. So I got certified. A few years later, I actually finished my undergrad degree. I had quit school very young. And so I went back full time while I was working, raising a family. That really, having a business degree helped me a great deal in my career, but mainly it helped build my confidence to think, oh, yeah, this is something that I can do and I can fit in. And I think that's very, very important for people to understand. What is it that they are thinking about themselves in that self-identification phase you're talking about that needs to be changed, and what can they do to change that? And then I sought out some very highly respected mentors who, when I got into a bind, I had someone to call and provide guidance because I was, even in a very, junior role, I was the head of HR.
Hey, super cool. And yeah, very interesting, steps that you were taking there. Now, when it comes to the skills that you had to pick up along the way to make you successful, now let's dive a little bit deeper there and also talk about the skills that make you successful at your job week to week.
Well, I think, again, mainly maybe because I was in more of a behind the scenes role and I had to learn to be front and center. For me, it was very important to, again, gain confidence and an assertive voice, a point of view, not just about what I was being asked about, but what I saw needed to be done in the business. I think very early on, I saw myself in this HR silo. And the reality is that HR is integral to the entire business. So I had to expand my focus. I also had to really learn how to listen without assuming, right? So much of HR is problem solving. And if we take off down the road trying to solve a problem that we only have a small slice of reality or of the issue itself, then that can be very disruptive and quite destructive, actually. So learning to listen and be patient and gather all the facts was very important. And I think something that's super important to the role I'm in today as well is being ready to be creative and to do the impossible, right? So many people don't like HR because they assume we are the HR police. We're the ones always saying no. And I believe that our job is to find a way in as many cases as possible to say yes. So that may mean challenging status quo and doing something kind of unorthodox in order, to solve the problem.
That's very true. And it is interesting that, in the beginning of your point, that if you go in the wrong direction, you can create a lot of problems. And not if you're not seeing the whole ecosystem, the bigger picture. We all want to be quick with solutions, but oftentimes it's the quick solutions that come to bite us back, 6 months down the road. And we're like, oh, we should have took a little bit more time. Now, tell me about the tools that you use that really help you streamline your work, and enable you to operate better.
You know, this one's a little harder for me because, again, it's small companies where I've kind of specialized over the last few years. I don't have the luxury of a lot of tools. So a lot of things that I do are homegrown. And again, goes back to that being innovative. But I really like interactive intranets, things that allow not only for us to put out information to employees, but also for employees to be able to write blog posts and communicate with other people, share what they're learning. It's a great way of putting employee recognition front and center and allowing peers to recognize peers, as well as celebrate promotions. And I consider that a great format for celebrating life together. I think that's something that we all want today. We want to be connected with the people we work with. I mean, we spend more time with them than anyone else generally. So to me, that's a tool that you can use almost any size company you're in. And especially now that we're working in such a remote environment, I think it helps us to stay connected. Similarly, I like really any of the chat channels. I like Slack a lot. There's a reward and recognition tool called Bonusly. And Bonusly is one of my favorites. It's a way that you can, our company had decided on $25 was the monthly allowance. And you use that to recognize your peers. You can use GIFs, all kinds of hashtags, and the entire company sees it on the Slack channel. And so when you build up your rewards, you can actually cash those in for something that matters to you. So as opposed to giving someone in the old days a plaque that they cared nothing about, right? It picks up dust. This is a way that, well, as an example, last year I was able to take a trip on what I had earned for buying Southwest points. So it's a really fun tool.
Hey, super cool. Yeah, I know some of the people over at Bonusly. They're a great company, and I'll make sure to put a link to them in the description below this video. So if you are watching this video, make sure to take a look at the description so you can check them out as well. And when we talk about HR, there's a lot of different positions in there, everything from an HR business partner to an HR generalist. And when I'm trying to self-identify, I ask myself, what is the HR job that I'm going to enjoy? Now, walk us through that process of how to properly self-identify so you make sure that you're in the right HR role.
Well, I think when you look at the job description, you're looking at something that, to your point, really speaks to that passion that you have. HR is very hard work. And so you have to make sure that you're going to something that is in alignment with your values, in alignment with your talents and your gifts and your interests. So, for me, that's always looking at, when you're looking at the job, but then you're also looking at the company. For me, I do a lot of research before I go to a job interview. I look at how are they reviewed online, not just on a Glassdoor type tool, but also how do their business clients think of them, right? Can you find out what their turnover looks like? By the way, everyone should always ask that question in an interview as they get later on. What does your attrition rate look like? If they don't know, you probably don't want to go to work there because it doesn't matter. So I'm looking for things like that. Do I believe in the leadership team? Do I like the people that I'm going to be working with? And do I see this as a challenging role that will help me to grow and expand? So, I think a few years ago, I knew of someone who had come to work at a company I was at, and she wanted to learn everything. And so she chose her job by which companies will allow me to try out all the different facets of HR. And I thought that was brilliant. Now, for me, I've always been a generalist. So I look at how many hats can I wear at one time, because I find that fun and challenging. So you have to know yourself, and then you have to be able to align that and ask those questions that help you understand whether or not you can find that at that particular organization.
And then when we're self-identifying, often what's important is we understand a little bit about where the industry is going. So we're asking ourselves, okay, we understand that there's more data and analytics being involved in HR, and that's also helping HR professionals have a seat at the table. And it's one of the reasons that we're seeing more HR professionals strive to become into positions like HR business partners. Mm-hmm. Now, there's many other things happening in the industry, everything from social media to the remote workforce that we're seeing today. Talk to us about where you see the future of HR going. I know it's a bit of a broad question, but we'll keep it open like that.
Well, I think that career progression has become very important to really every type of employee and every type of company. So HR has to come in with a very defined approach and understanding of how are we going to grow all these people in our company, right? How do we give them career paths? How do we help them to own their own development, for getting to where they want to be? I'm a huge believer that you don't just, someone's been in a seat for a certain period and you just automatically progress them. I think you show them what are the skill sets needed for all types of different roles, and then they can kind of pick and choose and select which way they're going to go. The highest performers will drive their own path. And so HR has to give them the skills and the tools to allow them to do that, or have the format. And I think we have to be more focused on inclusion. And I'm not just talking about diversity, although that is, when you think about different races, socioeconomic groups, and all of those are important. But what I'm talking about is the step back, really, that 10,000 foot. How do you get the most people who all want the same thing, but come at that from a different vantage point? And how do you give them a voice, and how do you give them a seat at the table? And if you can do that really successfully and build that collaboration, you won't be able to stop that company's growth. So how do we build that in a really authentic way? Something I'm working on right now, right? Because we are challenged with that continually, because the workforce is evolving. Hopefully that doesn't stop, right? I don't think you can stop it. And then, just to thinking about how do we create an environment where employees are truly themselves? What you said earlier, their best selves, bringing their authentic person where they just can't imagine being anywhere else. Because when employees are able to do that, well, when we as humans are able to do that, we give exponentially more effort and focus than we would before. So the employee wins, right? That's how we see career growth and make more money. And then the business wins. So why wouldn't we focus on those things? So those are some things I think we have to think about. And then, of course, with what we've all lived through with COVID, we have to really think about flex mobility. What happens now? How do we manage in a hybrid environment that I assume we're going to see a lot of over the next few years?
And with these new challenges, what there also is some solutions. And how do you go about finding these solutions and making sure that we can overcome these challenges? So can you talk about the solutions part of these hurdles that HR managers and HR professionals have to go through in order to create a great organization?
Sure. I think number one, we have to know our businesses. I've known too many HR people who, again, just wanted to focus on HR. What are we doing this in service of, right? We need to understand that. And then we have to be able to partner really well with the management team. We have to talk about where is it that we're trying to go and why. Then, only then can you start to solution. I think having a focus group that includes some leadership as well as some line employees, people at all levels of the organization, make sure that you don't assume, again, going back to that, make sure you don't assume that you know what different levels of employees or different geographically located people are going to want, and set your goals, right? The only way we achieve is by knowing where's the target. And so set 2 or 3 goals for that focus group and be ready to iterate, right? We're going to learn through trial and error, particularly like on this flexible mobility, allowing people to come in and out of the space and planning for that. Well, some's going to work and some of it is not going to work. And so being willing to be agile and keep trying it until we get it right.
I think that's one of the big things is just, it is a constant process of iteration and understanding that the only constant is change. Yeah.
And I say that all the time.
Now, let's say you're hiring for someone to step into your shoes. What would be the qualities that you would be looking for that would help you understand that HR position was right for that person, right? So someone's looking to step in your shoes. What would you be looking for?
Okay, that's a great question. I'm looking for someone who is business-minded, who is naturally curious and frequently ask why. You know, Cathy, why do we do this? Why does this make sense anymore? What if, right? That's someone who is drawing a correlation between what the business needs and how we can, again, provide those solutions. I need someone who really understands the balance between having a people-centric model and still driving the business, right? Sometimes I've heard people say before, well, I just love helping people. And one of my old mentors used to say, then go be a social worker, right? Because it's about more than that. It's really around helping people do what they're driven to do and are passionate about while promoting, driving this organization that funds your existence. And so I need to see a balance there. I think it's important, and this took me a while to get, quite frankly, the ability to be very comfortable being in uncomfortable situations. Right? You think about that. We have to deliver really bad news sometimes. I'd been on a job a week before and thought I was going to have to go tell someone that their spouse had died at work. I had never considered that as a part of HR, right? We have to deliver bad news a lot, unfortunately. Sometimes, even in spite of all of the work we've done to say yes, we have to say no to someone who doesn't want to hear it. And we have to be able to stand firm in our conviction. Here's why this is the right thing to do, to know when to be flexible and when to be not so flexible. And I think pushing back on managers for whatever reason, whether it's creating a fair hiring process or it's around budgeting, it's around resource needs, that's very hard for some very people-centric folks to do. So I'm looking for all of those things. And then I think making sure that they understand that HR is a service role. So we're probably always going to need more resources than what we have, because that just tends to be the nature of work. And the hardest thing for me was to realize that I'm going to be very friendly at work, but I'm probably not going to have many friends at work, because there's a line of separation in all that we know and the confidentiality that we have to maintain and the impartiality that we have to maintain. So I look for someone who's a pretty mature person who has that naturally, and that's not going to be difficult for. So it's a pretty long list.
That's a great list. And I very much agree in the last point. It's so important to not have any biases with the work that you do in HR. Now, before we hop, is there any other advice that you have for the students listening who are either looking to break into HR or already in HR and looking to level up their career?
I would say two things. One is be ready in most environments to wear a lot of hats because, again, it's fluid in what the needs are. So if you see yourself in a very slim, linear role, HR might not be the right place for you. And then also, someone told me years ago, and it was the best advice I was ever given, be ready when someone asks you to do something to think far beyond what they've requested. So think, okay, they asked me to do this, but what's the next logical step? Oh, I can do that. And then what's the next step? I can do that, right? Power is, or authority is usually taken, not given. And it's taken by being earned, by having initiative. So if you can show that, regardless of what role you're in, your future will be very, very bright.
And Cathy, if students want to go ahead and connect with you, can they connect with you on LinkedIn?
Yes, of course. Be happy to.
If you're watching this video, the chances are her LinkedIn URL is in the description below and you can click through and connect with her there. I want to thank you so much for being on today and doing this interview with us. And thank you to everyone who's watching.
Thanks so much. It was a pleasure.